Hello and welcome to my live stream of my WCW 1995 save, playing with the big boys. This is going to be me kind of live playing, going through this and just generally having a look at what on earth is going on in the game and trying to work out how I'm going to do it. Still, it's one of only my second live streams, so I'm still kind of making this up as I go along, so any suggestions or anything that goes along, that'd be really good. Today, what I'm kind of looking to do, I want to look through my roster. As I've not booked any shows yet, I want to look through who I've got in the roster because I think it's a bit thin on the ground in certain places. I want to look through the tag team division a little bit closer because I think we're kind of lacking in tag teams. Perhaps have a look around at a few people we can maybe sign and what we can do with some of the stables that we've got, because I'm a big fan of kind of stables, but I think the stables that we do have are looking a little bit just shoddy, not quite as good as they could be, so I'm hoping that we can kind of go through that and tidy the whole game up a little bit and just make it look a little bit nicer before we start booking things, because as much as I love TEW, I prefer being able to play offline. I have spreadsheets and things like that I like to use, so doing stuff in game, this is kind of all the cosmetic stuff I've got to sort out. So any suggestions, anything along the way, anything you'd like me to look at or look at in more details, please give us a shout. Otherwise you're just going to see me kind of clicking through things and generally just waffling on what's going through my brain, I guess, with what's happening. So fingers crossed it all works. We're going to try and get a lot of different things going in here. I've got my kind of all things kind of set up here at the moment, so I'm trying to work out how we get everything working. So I've got like a camera, hello, hopefully my camera's working, yeah it is, hello, and all the audio and all that kind of stuff is there, so I'm hoping that kind of works pretty well. So we'll see how we get going. So this is like the first time, as I say, we've got the kind of chat going on there. This is my kind of new flashy looking backdrop or overlay, isn't it, that we've got. So we'll go on there. So we'll see how we get on with that. So if you want to jump in, anyone who does come in and wants to watch and thinks I'm doing a good, bad or a different job, please let me know. So right, the first thing we'll look at is my roster. I went through this before in my introduction video on YouTube, however I'm going to have a little bit more of an in-depth look now. On the Grey Dog Software forum, where I'm actually running a diary about this as well, someone asked about the females and whether I'd bring in Medusa to kind of drop the title like she did, drop the WWE title in the bin as she did on there. Yeah, female wrestling in WCW is pretty thin on the ground. So essentially what we have here is we have the Diamond Doll and Sensational Sherry are our only two females that we've actually got employed. So as far as actual female wrestlers go, we really don't have much to go on. We really are quite thin on the ground with what we're going to do there. So the kind of women's division isn't something I'm massively looking at the moment. Yeah. Hello teammate. Yeah, thanks. I've got the camera up and working. I can see me, so I can now wave and say hello. I know it's crazy, isn't it? Do you know what? I've got like a green screen I'm going to stick up at some point and try and make it look a little bit more flash because I know what I'm doing. But this is just trying to kind of get out there. Otherwise, I'm going to keep fiddling around with these sort of backdrops and overlays and all that sort of stuff, and I'm going to waste my time doing that rather than actually playing. So I'm going to actually try and get some stuff done. So yeah, as I said, the women's division, that's completely and utterly like that's a busted flush at the minute. I do like the idea of starting a women's division in WCW because I do think we do. In the game world, there is a few kind of decent female wrestlers around who are unemployed. You know, weirdly, actually, if we go in here, female, we've got quite a lot who are unemployed. If we look at the actual one of them that crops up, who I actually knew nothing about, and perhaps I'm just a little bit behind the times here. We've got Debbie Malenko, who I assume is related to Dean Malenko, but I mean her kind of skills and her stats, she's got some really good potential here. We've got some fairly decent looking skills. I mean, obviously we don't know much about her at the moment, but there's a few of these kind of women that I wouldn't mind starting a roster on, but I do think at this moment in time, I think just a women's division is just a bit of a pie in the sky dream. So I'm looking at the males more than anything first, and I think the glaring thing that I've got is our major stars. We're kind of fine. We've got Hulk, we've got Lex, we've got Macho, we've got Rick, we've got Sting, and we've got the Big Show. I think things are all a little bit early doors for the Big Show, unfortunately. I don't think he'll do too much at the moment. I think he's kind of a bit too raw to get going, although he's in the Dungeon of Doom, so he can kind of muck about with Kevin Sullivan for a while, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm kind of happy with our major stars: Hulk, Lex, Savage, Flair and Sting. We've got a really good combination of hugely popular wrestlers, and then you've got people like Flair, Sting, Savage and Hulk. They're all going to pull me off some really good matches, so that's really good. It's when we drop down to our stars that we actually have no one. We've got Bobby Heenan, who's obviously a commentator / manager, and we've got Dusty Rhodes, who is my user character, who's a road agent manager colour. Someone has mentioned about giving Dusty one more run. Do you know what? 49 years of age, I'm not sure it's going to be the best choice, but I might get him out there. I'd quite like to bulk up the tag division a little bit with stuff, and I think he would be a good hand to have in that. So I might pair him up with someone at some point. We'll wait and see. We'll see how that goes. But as far as actual in-ring talent, we're really lacking. If we go down to well-known, I think we've got quite a few guys like your Arn Andersons, Big Bubba Rogers, or Big Boss Man as we know him, Booker T. We've got, if we look down at the pot, Benoit. Popularity wise, I mean, who's that? Yeah, Robert Eaton. Yeah, that's kind of cool. We've got guys that are pretty close to the cusp of becoming stars, but no one quite there. So we're going to have to pick some people out of here who we're going to push. To me, the immediate ones that stick out are going to be Arn Anderson, because he's just badass. Brian Pillman, because I really like Brian Pillman. Diamond Dallas Page. I'd like to push Diamond Dallas Page because I do DDP yoga, so I'm going to kind of push him. And we've got some other guys here that we're not going to push. I think one of the problems we've got is going to be if we go through what their perception is. Sorry, not their perception. We go through their perception and see who the faces are. We don't have a lot in the way of up and coming potential stars for as far as faces go. Sorry, get my words out there. We've got the Nasty Boys. I don't really want to do anything with them other than leave them in the tag team division. They're about as solid as I'm going to get in there. One of them, let's see if we actually just go down to just wrestlers as well. So we don't have Mean Gene. You've got Road Warrior Hulk. We've got him at the moment. Unfortunately, we don't have Road Warrior Animal because he is injured. He's got some sort of busted back, so he's currently unemployed. But again, I can't really see myself pushing Hulk as a singles wrestler. I might pair him up in a tag team with someone who's at 37 years of age. He can maybe do something with a youngster, but that's not great there. And then the next options we've got Johnny B. Bad. Oh, I mean, come on, we're not pushing him to the moon, are we? And we've got, Jesus Christ, 41-year-old Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Maybe if we go down to the recognisable, but you know, we're going to get into, again, we've got Alex Wright. Red Hill, hi, how you doing, mate? Good to have you on board. Look, you've been here since the start with all of these streams, so that's really good. Yeah, going down to my well-known faces, the faces are really poor here, aren't they? I've got Disco Inferno. I'm not a fan of Disco Inferno in real life, so I'm not sure I can push him. So I guess, yeah, it's really the faces we need to. We need to find some upper mid-card faces, I guess, because we're lacking badly here. So I guess I've got a couple on here. One guy that is really sticking out to me, because there's not loads of people I can kind of sign at the moment that are unemployed or at least signable. But as far as they're going to be a wrestler who can work in the US and going to be above that kind of, let's go 65 pop. Yeah, Duggan was a badass heel back in Mid-South. I get that. I don't know. Is he ever going to do anything at 41 years of age, though, Timo? Is he at 41 going to be able to do anything for us? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. I do like Hacksaw. I think he's a really good hand to have, and I think he's kind of a fun character to muck about with. And actually, you know, sort of scooting around a little bit between screens. If we go to Jim Duggan, actually his skills are not terrible. There's, you know, primary skills are not going to be great, but physicals are okay, and his fundamentals are okay. So I don't actually think he's a bad hand to have in there. He's just never going to be anything other than mid card for a long time. And at 41 years of age, we've got nowhere we can really go with him as far as pushing him up the card. But you know what? I'm more than happy to give Hacksaw a run, because also, look, I mean, we've just not got any faces. We've got kind of hardly any faces on the entire roster, so he's going to kind of get wins just because, you know, he's one of the few that can, I guess. So that's good. I was going through who we've got available, who I could sign, who's actually available. We've got Kurt, we've got Mr. Perfect, he's out with an injury. We've got Jacques Rougeau. again, not really great. Kevin Von Erich, I don't want to touch the Von Erichs, we don't want to get involved with those, do we? 53-year-old Hispanic wrestler who I've never heard of, no thank you. Rick the Model Martel, I mean there's a kind of guy who might come in and do a job, but 39 years of age, he's not where we want to go, I guess. Road Warrior Animal, do you know what, we've already got on my shortlist. I'm going to shortlist him because obviously when he's back from injury we're going to put the Road Warriors back together, it just makes sense. Roddy Piper, 41, doesn't wrestle, only occasionally, so he's not really an option. Ron Simmons, I guess he'd kind of be a badass option to bring in. I don't know. Again, he'd be up there straight away, but at 37 years of age, we've not kind of got anywhere to go with him, I guess, have we? And I think that's going to be hard. That's a hard sell for that kind of upper mid card. And Ted DiBiase for a non-wrestling role. Yeah, I quite like the idea of. That. No, there's never any nonsense. No idea is a bad idea. I'm more than happy to hear any ideas. I like coming on these streams because it kind of allows me to think about things and just kind of talk out loud rather than doing it. I guess the first real obvious ones to sign, Steve Austin, I don't want to touch him because he's out injured, and I also know Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to be a superstar, so I don't want to sign all the superstars in the world on this, so I'm going to avoid him at the moment. Tully Blanchard, no. These are the two guys, I mean, they're absolutely going to be toxic backstage, but we've got the Ultimate Warrior and we've got Big Van Vader, who are two guys who could immediately come in. I think Vader's obviously one who could come in at that mid-card, upper mid-card, and Warrior is another one who would obviously come in and be an immediate superstar. But I don't know if that's a great plan there with them. Not a bad idea to stick Duggan in a tag team. Pair him with an up-and-comer. Who could we go with, though? Let's have a look. So we've got our faces. We've got... well, he's not a star. He's well-known, isn't he? Is Jim Duggan. So... yeah, he's a Patriot gimmick. I like that, so that's quite a decent. Where's our up and comers going to come from? So I guess let's have a look at our creative. Next big thing, Benoit and Guerrero. I think they're both heels at the moment. Yeah, Duggan leading a kind of mad sort of, I don't know, a kind of mad USA patriotic thing would be kind of fun with them, wouldn't it? I guess with Duggan in charge. And just a couple there. Who have we got further down the roster, I guess? I don't want to be changing him into a kind of heel at the moment because I don't really have a lot of faces anyway. Let's get rid of who are going to be wrestlers. So I've got Alex Wright and Disco Inferno. I'm not sure that's going to kind of work. Who's unimportant? And to be fair, like the unimportant people we've got, I'm not adverse to kind of pushing those either, to be pushing those and firing someone up the kind of roster really quickly. Like you got Canyon, Cobra's not going to get it because he's useless. Joey Maggs again, rubbish. Justin Thunder Liger. He's only got a couple of more appearances with me, so I'm not worried about him. Kurosawa, he's kind of cool. He was cool back in the day. I used to watch him back there. And Duggan and Austin, I like the idea of a tag team of Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Steve Austin. But he's signing Steve Austin a bit of a cheat code. Like that's kind of just gonna. Is that too easy? I want to avoid Steve Austin to start with. Austin's not in the WCW, and I don't want to sign him because otherwise I'm just going to push him to the moon straight away, and it's just going to get too obvious. So yeah, he wasn't around in WCW. He didn't start. He was in ECW. Roughly around this time, I think in this mod he is currently unattached. Yeah, he's unemployed, but it says he's out with a strained bicep kind of injury, so I'm not sure what that is. I think around this time he would have been with Paul Heyman over in ECW, and then he obviously made the move to WWE or WWF fairly soon around that time. But like I say, I don't really want to have Steve Austin in there. I know because I just know he'll be really good. And I know I can put him with the Hollywood Blondes and they'd be really good, but it just feels like a bit of a cheat because I know his pop's going to go up to sort of 90s and things like that. I want to try and grind it out with WCW to start with, I guess. Yeah, Red Hill. I guess it's a long time going back with the history as well. My history around this time is fairly good because I used to run a podcast on the Monday Night Wars and the start of it, so I've got a fair amount of boring encyclopedic knowledge from back then because I used to research it a lot and used to go through all of the Observer newsletters from around that time. So you have kind of whatever Meltzer was waffling on about. Team. I'm the same as you. I think my knowledge around this time is kind of sad and embarrassing because I used to read all of the historical stuff, and it's quite interesting. I find it interesting to look back because you have things like Meltzer was not a big fan of Steve Austin. He was just like who is this bald, pants and boots kind of guy? This guy's not going to do anything. And you can read back, and it just looks kind of funny when you see some of the things they talk about. He talks about Rocky Maivia looking a bit average in the ring and all this sort of stuff. And I don't know. It kind of interests me. It's an era that I was interested in anyway, so I do know a lot about that. So I used to watch WWF at the time, so I'm not but much of a WCW buff, and I don't really have a lot of favourites from around that time because mine was the WWE. So I've got no one I really want to push. I do like the idea of this Duggan leading a kind of 3-man stable, though. I'm just not sure where we're going to go with it and who I can bring in there. I could have him. I could weirdly pair him with like the American males in a sort of weird, crazy, patriotic kind of thing. I don't know. That's kind of mad. Meltzer, as always, I'm not a big Dave Meltzer fan as the best of times. I know a lot of people like Dave Meltzer. I think he's just a regular fan who's got a bit of an opinion. He was just very good back in the old days, as he was one of the only real true reporters for of wrestling. Sorry, not just WWF, but wrestling in general. He's the only real reporter out there that kind of done anything. So I think in that sense, he was a big deal because he was kind of pioneering. But I think over the years we've just kind of assumed that his opinion's the only one that matters, and we're in a world where we don't have to do it. We don't have to just listen to Dave Meltzer anymore. He can give any match any stars he wants. We don't have to care. Whereas back in the day, we took his opinion a lot more seriously, and he was kind of reporting. I still find a lot of his reports from back then are still just throwing ideas out there, and they just hoping up for the best. So either a badass stable or USA, put them against a foreign invasion stable. Foreign invasion stable, I can't lie, I do like a bit of a evil foreigner invasion kind of stuff, and we have a few fairly decent, I don't want to say foreigners because that just sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? Because I do enjoy kind of the evil foreigner kind of gimmick coming in, and I think if we go down it, I think we've got a few guys that we could kind of do that with, which would be interesting. I need to sort this out. I've got Marcus Bagwell, who's for some reason in a face tag team, but it's a heel. I've got to sort that out. I think Booker T is a big missed opportunity around this time. He's been with the WWE and he had something. Booker T and the actual Harlem Heat, if you go back and watch Harlem Heat around the start of the Monday Night Wars, the 1995 WCW, and we got Harlem Heat as a tag team here. Stevie Ray and Booker T are money at this time. I mean, they are so good. You cannot describe how. You've got Booker T, who's like massive, over 6 foot tall. He was hugely athletic and massive at this time. I think really around this time they were probably the only really legitimate looking team that you could get, like unbelievably legitimate in how they were. I can't believe that they weren't pushed sooner, because they were also they just came over as genuine badass. Like this whole Harlem Heat, from the hood kind of gimmick, it just seemed perfection for them. So I'm really surprised they didn't do more. And when you see them in the ring, and also back then WCW had a slightly smaller ring. This is such a small, boring detail, but they had a slightly smaller ring. And when you put these two like well over 6 foot tall guys in there wrestling tag team matches, they just dominated everything. They looked so genuinely, like, legitimately badass that I'm surprised they didn't get pushed sooner. I'm surprised it took Booker T so long to kind of get where he did. And I've got to get the belts off of Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick, because they're absolutely useless. This is an absolute embarrassment of a stable, and I don't know how they ever held the belts anyway. But the likes of Harlem Heat are very likely to get a run. Nasty Boys will get in there as well, just because they're a face team as well. There's a good chance I'll take the belts off of Bunkhouse Buck and put them on the Nasty Boys, just because a face team seems a bit of a better option. Yeah, I agree. In WCW, there was very little room to grow, and I actually think this roster's a kind of really good example of that. When you do look at this this does show us the problems that WCW had, in the sense that you've got these kind of big guys at the top of the card, and the way WCW booked, and I'm going to carry on with the style, even though I'm not sure it's the best way, is you just fed your guys to these big names, and the higher up on this you were, i.e. if you were Hulk Hogan, if you were Lex Luger or Flair, you just got fed guys and you just beat them, which meant we don't have any of these stars and well-known people, because you look at all these names, none of these are anywhere on the level of those guys, and they were quite happy staying at the top. So guys like Booker T just didn't have that, there was never really that potential to jump from that mid-card to upper mid-card to main event really easily, unless you were kind of obviously friends with Hulk and things like that. But it's that growing room that was, there's that glass ceiling that was really there, and was it brass rings or whatever Vince McMahon used to talk about. Just so little chance for them. I want to kind of change that. That's what we want to do historically, so we can go back and rebook this and kind of change that. But you had Eric Bischoff obviously booking everything, and he was more than happy with just having these kind of big kind of superstars just at the top, those kind of household names, and wasn't really that interested. I still think they kind of dropped the ball with the light heavyweight stuff. I thought they'd done really well at the time, and they just kind of dropped the ball with not allowing the people to push up. That's why you see people like Jericho and Guerrero and Benoit and Malenko, etc., leaving eventually, because, you know, these big muscle men, the muscle Marys at the top of the card, were just not interested. So WWE were starving at the time. Vince McMahon was... I think at this time their kind of booking approach was a bit scattergun, and they didn't really know what they were doing. Someone mentioned on the Grey Dog software forum about starting a women's division. The thing what WWF were doing at this time is they were bringing in a lot of the Japanese talents that were out there. But the problem that they had was, for some reason, I'm sure Vince was okay in these guys coming in. He just had this habit of just wanting to bury certain people that came in and certain stuff that was going on. So weirdly, I just feel like Vince didn't really know how he was going to get out of this trouble that he was having against WCW, and just seems to weirdly have this habit of just almost trying to cut his own wrestlers' legs out from underneath them. So I'm not sure. Booker T in the mid-90s as a black American male, I'm not sure how well that would go down with Vince and what he wants to kind of portray as either. And, you know, whatever we think of WWF, I still think Vince has always been a big fan of his big muscle white meat baby face. He likes his John Cena's, his Hulk Hogan's. That's not kind of what Booker T is, I'm afraid. So I think that's probably one reason that Vince wasn't so keen on him. I think he'd have liked his look. I think if he was less ghetto and a bit more, you know, Greenwich, Connecticut, he would have been much happier with him. So yeah, I agree with you about Bill Watts. Bill Watts is a kind of interesting one with what he brought in at the time. If you go back over the Observer stuff at the time, Bill Watts was quite heavily involved. They did move the booking around amongst lots of people at the time. Vince got involved, Bill Watts got involved. They kind of flip-flopped between who they kind of wanted to do it, which is why you'll go back and you'll watch a lot of the 1995 really early Monday Night War stuff with Vince, with WWF, and you'll just see it. You'll go from completely different styles in how the shows are booked, because they just had so many people working on it. And I think it was just a case of, I think genuinely they were very close to going out of business. I think WCW weren't far off of driving them out of business at really early doors. So I think Vince was just kind of panicking and seeing what on earth he can do to kind of sort this out. And, you know, I'm not sure that they were so willing to go all in on a WCW guy or bring in someone like Booker T or anyone outside at the time to try and save them. I think he was kind of working on the assumption that HBK, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, you know, Bret Hart, this was going to steer us out of trouble. And I'm assuming in this mod WWF are going to have an absolute shed load of cash, so I've got absolutely no chance of really driving them out of business. But there's a real possibility they could have been driven out of business early doors when they first started. And you look through, I mean, this isn't what I was going to do, but if you look through the WWE roster at the time, you know, I guess straight away there's a kind of interesting guy. You got Ahmed Johnson. You talk about Booker T. Ahmed Johnson kind of had everything that Vince wanted in a guy there, so perhaps they felt that they didn't need to be doing much, but they will pin their hopes on Brett and Shawn really. And hoping to move through there. But I don't think they really had a clue how they were going to get out of the pickle that they got in, really. But that's kind of weird. Yokozuna, I wouldn't mind a Yokozuna, he'd do well for me. I could have him as a big guy. But anyway, no, that's not what I wanted to do. So yeah, my roster, I really need to be looking at a few upper mid-carders to bring in, and especially upper mid-card kind of faces. That's the important one. I'm still not totally sold on whether I should be going for Vader and Ultimate Warrior, because I think that's just going to absolutely kill my backstage. And I think at the moment, weirdly, backstage is pretty good. We've got Hulk's a mildly negative influence, which I'm happy with. I don't care about that. Lex, mildly negative, doesn't matter. Marcus Bagwell, he's dispensable, so I don't care about that. And then Flair's mildly negative. Other than that, everyone's pretty good, really. So I might provide catering and do a few nice things for them and give them a masseuse, and they'll be happy as Larry, to be honest. So, but yeah, we've got a lot of positivity going on in the backstage. So I'm not sure I need a Vader or a Ultimate Warrior coming in and completely and utterly ballsing that up for me. So that's not what we want to do. Tag teams are a huge part of what I like booking. I do love tag teams and love tag team booking. So I'm looking to bring in some new teams here, because I think one of the other WCW problems is we've just got American males. They're going to be up and coming, but then again we've got Scotty Riggs in the team, who's basically unimportant. So we've got a lot of guys I need to push pretty quickly to get there. Barrio Brothers, absolutely nobody's. They're going to disappear. Blue Bloods, I'm going to push. I'm obviously English, so Stephen Regal, I'm giving a push there. And I think Bobby Eaton's a really good fit for him at the moment. I quite like the idea of a three-man stable there. I think a few people have mentioned about bringing Dave Taylor in. Let's go and have a look at him. Taylor. So I could bring like Dave Taylor in as a third person to make up that. Because I'd like to push William Regal to the moon, basically, and get him right up there and see what's going on. And I could just bring in a third guy as part of the Blue Bloods to take some pinfalls with Bobby Eaton, I guess. And he's surprisingly not the most popular wrestler in the world, is he, Dave Taylor? Let's shortlist him anyway. Let's stick him on the shortlist. So, yeah, that's... teams are a part that worries me, because I do want to get the belts off them. But I've not got really good teams. Are the Enforcers? They're not. Oh, that's an inactive one, so let's get rid of those. I'd quite like to... The next thing, and if either of you guys have got any suggestions, especially Timo, as you've got an encyclopedic knowledge of wrestling from around this time. Stables, absolutely love Stables. Got the Four Horsemen. We are not going to have Mongo in there. And I don't really want Chris Benoit in there, because he's a bit manky as well. Bob Backlund and William Regal as the Extraordinary Gentleman. I do like the idea of that. Backlund would be with WWF, like, won't he? Bob Backlund, yeah, he's signed to WWF, an exclusive written deal. I do like the idea of that, though. I like the idea of... Because the thing, I think William Regal's pretty decent on this. I think he's got some pretty decent skills straight away. Where are we looking? Regal. Ooh. Yeah, so for a 27-year-old, his skills are all right, to be fair. I mean, primary skills, his technicals like going to be off the charts, and the physicals are kind of be all right. This is the sort of guy I want to be pushing. Who's young, he's got a lot of upside there. It's just maybe that's I'm spitballing ideas, but this is the idea. This could be my evil foreigners thing, couldn't it? An evil British stable up against Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Maybe we pair Hacksaw. So if we took Jim Duggan and paired him up with the American males in some sort of crazy patriotic gimmick, and then we can have Earl Bobby Eaton, and we could have Lord William Regal. I'm spitballing ideas here as well. I do love a foreigners kind of storyline. I think weirdly the storylines on this one are pretty naff as well. I've got to go through. I've got Hogan versus the Dungeon of Doom, which isn't a storyline I really like. At the time it was terrible. Like, the Dungeon of Doom was absolutely rubbish. Whatever Kevin Sullivan has said, like, historically, that is he tries to make out as if the Dungeon of Doom was like meant to be comedy. It wasn't. Kevin Sullivan was trying his best to do something cool, and it wasn't working. My problem with this storyline is Hulk Hogan is a huge star, and absolutely no one other than the Giant is worth wrestling. So pay-per-views are going to just be him beating the Giant, which I don't really want either, to be fair. Triple H, Hunt Hurst. Let's see, he'd be in WWE, I think, wouldn't he? Hunter Hurst Helmsley. Yeah, currently employed by the WWF. This would have been, yeah, proper snob Hunter Hurst Helmsley back when he was with... I'm not even sure. Did he start with... He didn't start with China, didn't he? He had a couple of different valets over the time there. He had some sort of random women turn up with him in his really early days. So... a faction called the Spanish Inquisition. They were doing accepted fear for no reason. Nobody ever expected it. That would be the most British thing to actually do, wouldn't it? To have the Spanish Inquisition and do that. I do like that. Yeah, it's a shame for Hunter Hurst Helmsley because he would kind of fit in with that kind of snobbish thing. No, he was around. It was around WWE around this time. This would have been around the time he kind of debuted there. He wouldn't have been that. I think personally, the pop there with like 60s is really high that they've given him, which is kind of fine. I've got no problem with that. We can have high pop for people. I think that's quite generous for where his standing was at the start of 1995, because he really was just starting the gimmick. You might remember he was wrestling. He had a hog pen match with Henry O. Godwin and stuff like this, and sort of wrestling with cows and pigs and stuff like that. So I mean, Triple H really was at the absolute bottom of the pile around this time. He was not living his best life, shall we say, on the WWF roster, but he would have done well. That would have been a good fit for the kind of Blue Bloods sort of thing. Who can we bring in? Let's have a look. So I've got a stable. We've got the Blue Blood stable anyway, but it's only 2 people. What we really need to do, because we've got Bobby Eaton there, who's, you know, it's going to be these skills. It's our performance skills, which both of these guys are kind of rubbish with. We kind of need someone in there to do it. My other thinking is, and this is a completely wild idea, I don't mind the idea of the 4 Horsemen having, because the 4 Horsemen, we've currently got Benoit and Mongo, we're going to get rid of them. I like the idea of Diamond Dallas Page and William Regal in the 4 Horsemen. I have no idea why, but I just like the idea of William Regal going around in a suit with kind of Arn Anderson and Ric Flair, and I think Diamond Dallas Page is kind of a nice fit around that time as well, as being a bit of a flashier one. I'm not sure, is that just a crazy idea? But I like that. At the time they had Brian Pillman in the 4 Horsemen at the start of 95, but they binned him off, didn't they, in 95, of basically sort of, he was a bit too unhinged in the Horseman forum. But I do like the idea of Flair, Arn Anderson, Diamond Dallas Page and William Regal. But it might be too soon for William Regal for something like that. But again, this is fantasy booking. I kind of like going like a bit weird and off the wall, because that just gives you a completely different direction to take the 4 Horsemen in, which I kind of like, because I mean it's such a badass stable. But as it stands, you know, Benoit and Mongo just ain't the ones for it. So that's one of the places I'd quite like to go with it. So, but I think it's the 4 Horsemen. You've got to get the 4 Horsemen right, otherwise it just feels a bit of a letdown, really. Let's have a look if there's any potentials we could sign who can at least talk for the Blue Bloods. So can work in the US. Let's go for. Do they need to be a wrestler? No, we could have someone who can work in the US. Da, da, da. Do I care? No, not really. Yeah, no. Gotta speak English. But not too worried about any of this. Let's do unemployed. The really easy ones to start with. Oh, Christ. That's a lot of people. Let's up our microphone skills. What about this? Star quality 50. Here we go. So, have we got here? Bill Dundee. Oh, God. Bill Mercer. Bill Watts. No. Superstar. Billy Graham. No. But Ray Dudley. that'd be an interesting one. I'm currently unemployed. So what? That's weird. Is ECW on this? ECW roster. Oh, okay. So there is a few people on there. Cactus Jack. Oh, I don't want to go through and steal the Dudleys though. That would be proper cheating as well, wouldn't it? William Shatner. Just bring in William Shatner. Sean Morley, Roddy Piper. I don't know. Maybe I could bring in Roddy Piper as a kind of mouthpiece for the Blue Bloods. That'd bump them straight up the roster a bit as well, wouldn't it? It cost me a fortune though just to be a mouthpiece for essentially a mid-card tag team, which is probably a little bit too much, I guess. Rick Rude. Oh man, that's a good one, isn't it? Occasional wrestler, manager and a colour commentator. His microphone must be off the charts, yeah. Oh, let's shortlist Rick Rude. I quite like the idea of him. Ole Anderson. Nikita Komarov. Mr. T? Don't think I want Mr. T. Lou Albano? I don't know. I don't want Captain Lou, do we really? Lady Blossom. What's she like? Sex appeal 90s. Nice. Kim Green. Jimmy Superfly Snooker. Come in and kill some people. Jesse Armstrong. Yeah, I think I quite like this. I quite like this database, but there is some guys like you've got 26-year-olds here with like insane microphone skills and charisma, and I think Bubba Ray Dudley's going to be the same there, isn't he? Yeah, these stats are a little bit. I think they're a bit generous, but Christian Cage, you know, we know he'll go on to become Captain Charisma and all these kind of great things, but I can't imagine there's any 21-year-olds out there with like microphone skills this high. Don Callis, we could bring in Don Callis. Oh my god, open the forbidden door already and bring in Don and whatever he's doing in AEW. I don't watch anywhere near enough modern wrestling to know what he's really doing. Gary Hart, Gordon Solly, Harley Race. Oh, I don't know, maybe I could do the same with Harley Race. He'd be quite decent. Honky Tonk Man, absolutely no chance we're bringing him in. Jake Roberts, wow. Wow, that's an option, isn't it? Yeah, see that's kind of mad. You've got Jake Roberts there, who's 40, which is, you know, close to being past it. But who did we just look at a minute ago? We had Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So you got Triple H, who's, you know, in this game world is wildly more popular than Jake Roberts is. In like 95, I'm not sure I believe that. That's pushing it for me. It's pushing it. So Alfred Hayes. Would Alfred Hayes have been? Let's have a look. I think he'll be with WWE. Is he not even on it? Oh no, I clicked off it now. Michael Hayes. Ooh. Is he not even on it? That would be sad, wouldn't it? He must be in the database somewhere, mustn't he? It would have been the time around the time he would have been with WWE. I would have thought. Oh, maybe he's not in the database. We've got Michael Hayes. Let's have a look. Is he not in there at all? Game editor. Amy Hayes. No, I don't think Lord Alfred Hayes is in there. Maybe he's someone I could add. That's not a bad shout as it goes. No, it doesn't look like Lord Alfred Hayes is there. I think you're right though. I think that would have been roughly around his kind of. Would you still been with WWE? I think he probably would have been. Was he? God, was he really gone by 1995? That makes me feel old. I'm gonna have to try and find this out as I go along. Lord, I'm sorry, I'm just googling this because I want to find out when he retired now. Lord Alfred Hayes. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, he was around, but it looks like he finished up with WWE in 1995. So yeah, he went on to have a small role in American Wrestling Federation. But he used to do French commentary as well. Bloody hell. Did not know that. Yeah, looks like that was kind of... He would have been gone by that point. That's kind of a shame, isn't it? Yeah, maybe. It doesn't even seem to be in the database, so perhaps he's someone I need to kind of get and bring back, because he would make sense in there. And he was really nice in WWE, but he wasn't always a nice character. He was kind of a bad heel in some other places, so that would work with that stable, wouldn't it? I like the idea of that as well, because it sticks with the British thing. I do quite like the idea of keeping it British. Right, so with tag teams, I need to add some tag teams, because we've not got enough. I don't want Luger and Sting teaming up too often, because they'll just dominate the division. So that's something else I need to look at. I've got a lot of jobber teams. Perhaps I need to create some teams from just who we've got, just randomly stick some people together and hope for the best, I guess. Jim Duggan does seem like a good bet to start a face tag team with, though, doesn't he? Let's have a look. Feels like he's got a lot of popularity there. Yeah. Oh, Jonathan, you've joined. Hello, mate. How you doing? I could import him from a 93 database. That would make sense. I think he makes sense as a kind of character I've been there, because I do think he'd still be around. I think this is roughly when he retired, so it wouldn't be pushing reality for me to think that he would be available around that time. Maybe that's being a bit generous, but I might do that. I'll have to find a 93. Actually, I think I've got a 92 database on it, so I'm guessing he would have been there. A heel savage. Now, I've got a feeling, and I've played this database quite a few times in the past, and the problem I've got with Mr. Macho Man Randy Savage is this man is an absolute drug machine, and always manages to get pulled up for some sort of drugs, or gets into a lot of backstage problems, and normally ends up disappearing fairly quickly. So as much as I do love Macho Man Randy Savage, and he's currently a babyface in this one, which I kind of like, because I do think Macho's pretty cool, I don't think he's going to be around for me very long, so I don't try and plan too much around him. Do like the idea of Macho and Jim Duggan together. You can just imagine the insane promos you'd get from those lunatics together. Yeah, Big Ted's got the money, innit? That's the thing, Jonathan. He's got the money, innit? So Big Ted's got the money. He's going to bring anyone out of retirement for that, when I've got guys on my roster there. One thing I do quite like doing, a storyline I think is pretty cool to run. No, not pretty cool, but I kind of like, and I think is unemployed, is bringing in Miss Elizabeth. She is, super duper to have on there. If we try to negotiate with her, I'm pretty sure Macho isn't going to be that happy, but I wouldn't care what Macho Man thinks. But I quite like bringing Miss Elizabeth in, because she's a pretty cool person to book around, and she's got the star quality and sex appeal, which I quite like. I think she's quite a nice one to bring in, and we can have her going a bit, sending Macho a bit mad, which I quite like. Plus everyone loves Miss Elizabeth, so you can't have any problems with her. So yeah, I'm not really sure what other teams to look to bring in and around this time, because I need to bring in someone fairly decent just to bulk out the roster a bit. But I don't know, it feels a bit cheating if I bring in the likes of the Dudley Boys or Hardy Boy. I think the Hardys are with WWE, or Edge and Christian and that sort of stuff, but I don't know, it can work in the US, and there's a minimum popularity of 50 in the US. Let's go unemployed again. Let's have a look who we've got here. Oops. Yeah, I've got a fair amount. I do just feel like bringing in Vader and Warrior just to see how mad everything would end up going. But Ricky Steamboat, 42. Oh, his personality will rotate. Paul Ellering. Oh, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Could do something with him. Oh, I could bring in Butch and... could bring in the Bushwhackers. That would be horrendous. They're terrible. Look how big their pop is, though, with 50. The Beverly Brothers. The Beverly Brothers, are they with the WWE at this time? Let's have a look. Would they even be known as the Beverly? I don't know what their alternative names would be. What's their actual names? Let's have a look. Duggan and Jake Roberts. That's a kind of cool idea. I like the idea of Jake the Snake coming in. Again, he's probably going to be a problem, but I don't mind working with problems. Oh, look at you with your knowledge, mate. Mike Enos. Oh, yeah, so they should be around. God, they'd be old, wouldn't they? Bloody hell. Let's have a look. So we can find his actual stuff on here. Enos. Mike Enos. God, he looks what an absolute chump there. The Destruction Crew with Wayne Bloom. Look at you, you got that. Well impressed with that, mister. Actually, do you know what? Not a bad shout, because when you look at the popularity, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I want that kind of mid to upper mid card kind of stuff. That's not terrible actually. He's gonna be a heel, isn't he? The Beverly Brothers and the Destruction Crew. That's such a cheesy name. But the Destruction, he must be like. How much will he cost me? Yeah, that's not too bad. Quite like the idea of that. Oh, he's in with Dick Slater as well. God, get Dirty Dick back in there and Wayne Bloom. Okay, so that'd kind of work, wouldn't it? Can't play comedy, can't play legit poor comedy matches. That's fine. Oh, let's shortlist him. That's a good shout, mate. I'm enjoying that. And Wayne Bloom, 36. Yeah, it's not too bad. What's the skills looking like? Fundamentals are tidy, aren't they? We'll take that. That's decent enough from the mid card. Can't play any of that. That's perfect. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to shortlist them. I quite like the idea of this. I like the idea of the Destruction Crew as well. I could even do them as a face team in some sort of mad world, couldn't I, if I wanted to? Yeah, we'll wait and see. Yeah, like the idea of them. Good shout. Alright, let's get Jake Roberts on the shortlist so I don't forget about him as well. Would a team now of Jake Roberts and Jim Duggan, is that wasting two 40-year-old veterans who could be helping out some younger talent? I could go through and bring in some future names that we do know about. Who are they telling me my hidden gems are? Yeah, we've got Gangrel, Joey Legend, Christian, Rikishi. I could just bring in Rikishi now. I don't know. I feel these are a bit too cheating. Do you know what? I'm gonna go straight off this. And let's offer the Beverly Brothers a contract. Written. I quite like bringing people in for short amount of times. I don't really like going in for big long contracts straight away with these guys. So we might do this as I'm not really worried about money side of things. This is WCW. We're going to bankroll everyone. So if we do 6 months, yeah, let's make that offer. Isn't attractive enough? You want an extra $100? Go for it, mate. What? I have given you the 8. Oh, what are you doing? No, I do get Rikishi been around. Yeah, if I sign Christian, Rikishi, am I getting into a little bit of cheating? No, am I bringing in all these really good guys that are kind of a little bit too obvious? Are we going to know that they're? Yeah, I don't know. But then again, I'm mentally toying with the idea of it. But I do quite like the idea of it. Let's give him a 10% bonus. I don't care. I'm offering you the money you want. Oh, shut up. Beverly Brothers already annoying me. And Wayne. Let's do you 8. Oh, we don't want to go for 3 years. We'll go for 6 months to see how you get on. Woo, 12.50. No, thank you. You can have a 10% bonus. Oh, still not. Rick Martel's a decent shout, isn't it? Actually, Jane, let's do set to last demand. We'll do that. I'm not too worried about money on him. What did I do? 6 years. Oh, I did do 6 years. 6 months. Yeah, I agree with you there. We'll go with that. Cheers, mate. That would have been a disaster, wouldn't it? Oh, Eric. Where's Eric giving it the beans here? Oh, do you know what? Let's give you a year then and see what you're saying. Eric's not happy with me. So here we go. Rikishi's a decent shout. Orient Express, I quite like the idea of that. I think Christian would be fair depending on the mod maker. Yeah, he was never the biggest star. No, I get that. I get that. Perhaps we can bring Christian in. I'll have a look. I'm pretty heavy on heels. So I do want people who can potentially come in and be a face, because otherwise I feel like I'm just going to just make my problems worse with more and more heels. We can get a bonus of every event. Come on, why not? Oh, right, you're just going to have to leave it for a minute, Wayne, because you're being a pain to deal with. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at what Christian was like. So we've got Christian here. What's his... if Pop's really low. Like, he's never... I'm not sure he's going to be a superstar. I think his skills are pretty insane though. Yeah, fundamentals are pretty good. But then again, he was a pretty good hand anyway. I think it would be wrong to turn around and say that he wasn't. Primary skills are pretty weak. Aerial and flashiness, I can get that. I do like the idea that Patriot and Hacksaw Jim Duggan's a pretty good one. I like the idea of putting Jim Duggan with the American males. I think there's a kind of weird patriotic gimmick there to be had. The American males with Hacksaw at the front. Because I like the American males, I was a really big fan of those, and I was a really big fan of Scotty Riggs. I thought he was a really good wrestler, which I thought was worth exploring, because I want to push them. And putting just Jim Duggan there would probably elevate him pretty quickly, and I think you've just got a kind of bit of a comedy routine we could have there. Rick Martel. Rick Martel's a good one. I like the idea. I think Christian's not so bad. He's an amazing heel, so I do kind of want to move away from that. Although I think Rikishi's not going to be the same problem, is he? He's going to tell me he plays. Yeah, we could bring him in as a face. Let's shortlist him and we'll see where we go with Rikishi. But I quite like the idea of bringing Rikishi in, because this is quite crazy popular for how he is, but I don't think his skills are going to be... Yeah, skills are pretty good, but he's got star quality. We know these guys are going to do well, so you've got to expect that at some points. I did look at Rick Martel earlier, didn't I? At 39, Rick can come in and I think he could do a decent job there. Yeah, Public Enemy, the Pitbulls, and Eliminators. These are kind of teams I always go for. I always find them a little bit... They're just a little bit... They are fillers, aren't they? So maybe rather than going back to the same well that I always go to, maybe it'd be a bit interesting if I went for some different teams and maybe tried to create some different teams. Rick Martel would be an interesting one to bring in. I think he'd cost me a fortune though. I think he could... Yeah, he'd ask for quite a lot of money. Pop-wise is a decent one though, and I could bring him in to do something with somebody. Again, I could stick him in as a face as well, couldn't I guess? And shortlist him as well before we get to in there. The one thing is, I mean, we need to have 26 active wrestlers. We've got 52 at the moment, and I think one of the problems I have got is I've just got a lot of kind of crap around the... Yeah, like my unimportant people as far as in-ring talent go. Oops. Oh, my in-ring unimportant talent. So my jobbers, I've just got a lot of them. So I think guys like, I've got like Terry Richards, so I've got Rhino. He's on a handshake deal. I've got Scott Armstrong, he's going to go nowhere. We just do have quite a lot of people. Sergeant Craig Pittman, I mean, he was rubbish at the time. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, I agree. I think Rick the Model, Martel's mic skills on this are kind of overrated because he was just a pretty boy. He never came out, and most of the time when he talked, you couldn't really understand what he was saying at the time anyway. So I think they're being reasonably generous there. Yeah, do you know, there's a couple of jobbers on here I do want to push. The Renegade, weirdly, has been given a pretty good Destiny role on this for some reason, so I'm quite keen to push him forward. We've got guys like Mr. JL. I think Kurosawa was a missed opportunity, and yep, another obvious one, Chris Canyon as well. These are guys who are going to have some pretty decent in-ring abilities. Always their performance skills are going to be a bit of one to hold them back. But I mean, we've got Canyon there. I mean, he's a guy we could pair him with one of the higher up the card faces. Another one, like I say, I do like working with the tag teams because I think it's just a good way of bringing these youngsters through. We do have Johnny B. Bad, who's another one of our higher up the card faces. There's some comedy to be had there. Red Hill. On the creative, that's how we find out. So the next big things, it all depends on the wording of stuff. I learnt about this years and years ago, so this is kind of not particularly interesting. So we've got Destiny roles on this mod will probably be set for quite a lot of people, but when you play other mods where they don't set them, or people who are just put to random, the wording makes a big difference. And for example, we've got here Ascend to Superstardom. That basically means that if we talk about superstardom and stuff like become a major player, we've got for Eddie Guerrero, that basically tells you what their kind of Destiny role for their popularity might be in the future. In hot prospects here, we've got things like the Renegade could turn into a fantastic in-ring performer, and we've got things like Chris Benoit will become a phenomenal worker. So wordings like phenomenal worker means like in-ring he's going to become amazing, and the Renegade becoming a fantastic in-ring means he's going to do really well. Fine in-ring performer means okay, he'll do all right. But if we have words like fantastic, Eddie Guerrero being an exceptional in-ring talent means his in-ring talents are going to be fantastic. So no, there's not a sort of secret page. It's just the wording on some of these will tell you what the kind of cap for some of them might be. So it's worth just looking in there. It gives you an idea of what they could end up going to be. Who else we got here? Yeah, Johnny, I do. The Armstrongs in a stable. I do know that could be all right, but again, they're not great. Who did we want to look at? Someone's talking about one of the Armstrongs, weren't they? A couple of the. What's Brad Armstrong? Brad Armstrong, is he knocking about with? Where would he have been around this time? Let's have a look. Let's have a look at all the Armstrongs that we can have a look at. Brad is with SMW on a handshake deal. Not too bad though, is he? Basics is insane, actually. That's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Basics and physicals are all okay in there as well, so actually he might be worth bringing in to pair up with them, so. That's an interesting one. Yeah, Smoky Mountain, perfect. Timu about Benoit never drawing anything. Yeah, I agree that he wouldn't have drawn anything. However, I guess it depends what way you want to look at it. I think Benoit's an interesting one in the sense of, I mean, he's obviously a scruffy character, no one's going to deny that, and we don't really like Chris Benoit. However, from a creative point of view, a next big thing, we do know that Chris Benoit really had potential to be really good, and even back then there was just a lot of buzz around him as how he came in, and even WCW pushed him a lot, but I don't know, I don't really want to go all in on Chris Benoit. It just makes your save in your diary look a little bit weird, doesn't it? Yeah, I quite like the idea of Brad Armstrong. He's definitely, I mean, having looked at the other Armstrongs, we've got Steve and Scott, definitely not the nicer looking ones, whereas Brad Armstrong looks pretty much like a wrestler. I'm a little bit Vince McMahon in our book. I like my wrestlers to kind of have a bit more of a look than looking like a dishevelled rubbish old wrestler, whereas a guy like Brad Armstrong looks like he's got potential. So yeah, let's shortlist him. Oh, I've already got him on shortlist. Go away. I quite like the idea of him because he has got a lot of skills there. Microphone and that is never going to be great, but these are the kind of like steady hands we need in there. Actually, let's have a quick look at the skills. Yeah, he's not like a heel or a face either way, so yeah. Ranked 108 in the world, wow. I quite like the idea of him. We've got a lot of potential people to sign up. I think that's good. I think what we need to do is I just need to really just get on it straight away of pushing guys really quickly to kind of get up that roster and give them a few wins, give them a bit of the Goldberg treatment, stick a rocket to their back and see where they go. One other thing I think I need to do is I need to look at what we've got going on here as far as storylines go. So we need to have at least 3 with 50 heat, which I think with the roster I've got is going to be pretty easy. But Hogan against the Dungeon of Doom, I'm going to keep this going for a little bit, but I'm not massively interested in it. I'm not too invested in this one. I think the Dungeon of Doom, what I have done in the past with the Dungeon is I've binned off the kind of comedy stuff. So Kamala, his contract runs out in a month. I'm not going to renew his contract because I just don't think there's a lot going on with him. Skills wise, like primary skills rubbish, physicals fairly rubbish. He's not interested in anyone. So I think I'm going to let Kamala go. What I normally do with the Dungeon of Doom is bin off the Zodiac as well, because no one needs Brutus the Barber Beefcake just knocking about, getting in the way. He's a load of rubbish. I tend to change the Shark back to John Tenter, or just take a little bit more serious and just try and make the Dungeon of Doom a bit more serious, because I think they could have been a decent stable, but it was just stupid comedy really more than anything. So yeah, kind of interesting stuff. Been some really good ideas, guys. Though I should do this more often. You've given me some suggestions, some really good guys to shortlist and what I should do. So I'm impressed with that. Have we got any more suggestions of who I could stick in the 4 Horsemen though before I just go full in on Diamond Dallas Page? Yeah, I think we do. I do think we do have some sort of relationship with New Japan. I'm not sure what we do. Yeah, we hate ECW and we hate WWE. We've got a trading agreement. Yeah, so we're not going to steal each other. So I could bring him in. I guess the problem with that, and without being horrible, I think the Hulk and Kurosawa storyline is just never going to get anywhere. Yeah, booking past like the first week for me is the hardest part. I tend to get like 1 week booked and then it's like I've got all these ideas and just never end up going full whack with it. So I do see your point there, mate. I've got, for this save, I've actually got loads of stuff, loads of other notes jotted down that I want to kind of put in place, but I don't want to kind of retread any old ideas I've had. Warrior versus Kurosawa, I mean, it just, they've got 40 heat. I just can't see this feud ever doing anything other than being like 40 max. I think it's just going to fall apart. I don't think either of the guys involved, either Hulk or Kurosawa, have just got enough to kind of carry a feud around there. I'm not even sure Kurosawa can speak English, can he? So, yeah, it's just, you know, performance stuff is just, he's going to be an absolute disaster zone to book Kurosawa. Oops. Yeah, yeah, no, I'm not feeling Kurosawa as a guy kind of leading an angle really. So I think that's kind of one of the struggles I have with him really. I quite liked him in real life though. Not gonna lie, in real life I thought he was good. He speaks fluent Japanese but nothing else. So yeah, can't get any promos out of him. Road Warrior Hulk we've got, haven't we? He's just waiting around till Animal comes back. Surely we can't do much with him other than, you know, we're waiting for him to come back for the Legion of Doom, aren't we? So yeah, I think I might have to bundle them together, because like the Stud Stable one is another storyline that's not going to go anywhere with Harlem Heat. Harlem Heat are pretty much going to come out of that. The problem you got there is the Stud Stable are heels and so are Harlem Heat. So as far as this actual storyline goes, it's a kind of weird one. They kind of did a weird stuff at the time where like sort of Sensational Sherry was just going around flirting with everyone and never really went anywhere with it. Typical WCW, mind you, just of a kind of weird storyline that went nowhere. But you're probably right. I could stick Road Warrior Hawk in there. Perhaps we need to find a tag team partner for Hawk, and perhaps he could we could have a kind of Road Warriors 2.0 for a few months until I can bring an Animal, I guess, and maybe he can do something there. Maybe I can put him with someone like. I quite like my tag teams to have a bit of chemistry, especially if we're going to go with an older guy. Let's have a look who we've got down in the unimportance. Mr. JL might be a good fit, or Chris Canyon. Perhaps these two are the guys who could just be a nice kind of a bit of fodder for Road Warrior Hawk, and perhaps if he tagged with one of those and had a bit of chemistry, or at least could drag them along to something, I guess. Scotty Norton. I think the thing with Scott Norton is he's going to be a heel. I loved Scott Norton in WCW around this time. I remember he watched the stuff in like 1995. The dude is absolutely legitimate badass. I mean, he was like some sort of world champion at arm wrestling or something. He was also like he was a security guard and bodyguard for loads of celebrities and stuff. Like a genuine badass. How on earth they didn't get more out of him, I'll never know, because I think he's an absolute superstar, really. 100% heel, so I'm not sure what I could do with Road Warrior Hawk. I don't really want to be turning any of my faces heel. I'd consider turning my heels face if I need to kind of balance out, but I've got a lot more heels than I do faces, which is one of my kind of problems. So I either need to bring in a face to tag with Hawk, or I don't know, just find someone kind of lower down there. I feel we've got a lot of the kind of roster's a little bit bloated. Looking at this at the unimportant, we've got some guys here that I've definitely been off straight off the bat, really. You know, you got the likes of Cobra, who's never going to go anywhere. You know, Fidel Sierra, I don't even know who he is. Yeah, Norton was huge in Japan, and they brought him over, and weirdly they brought him over in '95 for the start of the Monday Night Wars, and genuinely stuck him into these kind of feuds straight away, really prominently featured him, and then just did nothing with him. The thing I really liked about him that I thought was really good was the man can wrestle. The man can actually go in the ring and looks like a genuine badass at this time. He actually looks like, you know, the sort of guy you don't want to step in the ring with and be messed around with. He does have that kind of tough guy look about him, and he wrestles in that tough guy kind of style. Why on earth they didn't do more with him, I don't really know. It kind of surprises me because I think there's a lot of potential for it, but it's typical WCW. They kind of had stuff there and they just decided not to do anything with it, I guess. So I don't know. It's WCW's mad, isn't it? Really, I guess. I'm glad he done well in New Japan, because I think he's just kind of a guy who deserved a bit of success, because he was just pretty decent. So I've got to go through and sort out my referees. Oh, I've got Nick Patrick. That's cool. And Randy Anderson. Yeah, excellent. I really need to. You know, these streams was meant to be me sorting stuff out, and it's more just me getting ideas off you guys, which is fantastic, because this is saving me a job of actually thinking things up. I wanted to go through and kind of purge these things a bit better. Yeah, he was a Cuban assassin. Really good. Look at you. You know your stuff, don't you, McCready? Yeah, he was the Cuban assassin, because I looked this up earlier, because he was a part of the tag team for the Barrio Brothers, and someone asked me on the Grey Dog forum why they called the Barrio Brothers when neither of them are called Barrio and they're not brothers. Now, I think what it turns out was Fidel Sierra went by the name Fidel Barrio, and Ricky Santana went by the name Ricky Barrio at one time. But I think my crude bit of research tells me that Barrio is basically Mexican or Spanish for hood, like neighbourhood. So I think they're kind of like brothers from the hood, from the same neighbourhood, and they're kind of friends rather than actual brothers. I do like the idea of just a quick one, because we've got to get through to the first pay-per-view. Pay-per-views we've got. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the New Japan Super Show. I might knock that one in the head, because I think that's going to be hard. But as far as like Clash of the Champions go, we've just got to get quite a few feuds in there, and we've got to start pushing some of these faces up to the major star level, to the upper mid card level, as well as get a few of the heels up there as well. But I think the thing I've got with that kind of with the heels is we've got guys who can make that jump to the star level, I think, pretty quickly. Let's not get bogged down into the technicalities of whether wrestlers are fake. I mean, we've got Yokozuna, who was the Japanese sensation, who clearly wasn't Japanese, but we don't need logic in the world of wrestling, do we, today? Back then we didn't have anyone who was just foreign was just, that was it, you were just foreign, it didn't matter where you were from. If you weren't American, that was just the worst thing you could ever be. So I like those simpler days with wrestling. So what was I looking for? I was looking for heels that I was going to push. I've got a lot of good heels I'm going to push, and quite frankly, like Arn Anderson is definitely going to get pushed. I think Booker T's quite a good one. I'm not sure how the tag team division's going to go. Brian Pillman, another one. I think as far as like heels go, I've got a load of heels that I want to push and ramp up the card pretty quickly. So we'll see how that goes. I've got an absolute ton of managers here that have got nobody. I mean, guys like Dusty Rhodes and Arn Anderson, obviously not. Whether Teddy Long will stay a manager, but I've got like Sonny Ono. I mean, he was rubbish at the time. This is part of the kind of New Japan trades, but has he actually contracted to me? Yeah, he's actually contracted to me, which is a bloody disaster, really, isn't it? I'm not going to have anything for him to do. Yeah, a sort of heel Japanese manager. I'm not sure what I can get out of that, but does speak fluent English, so I guess we can try and do stuff. But yeah, I've got a lot of managers, so I've got to try and find managers, and I think I'm going to be setting up some stables and teams with managers and that sort of stuff, just to get these kind of guys out of the way and work out where we're going, and just need to work out who we're going to push, I guess. Yeah, I mean, a bit like Rusev, wasn't it? Rusev wasn't Russian, although they kind of liked the idea of him being Russian for a bit, and then just went Bulgaria because Russia got a little bit too nasty. I guess I'm guessing Russia's just not. Yeah. Most things about wrestling don't make any sense though when we start overthinking them. That's the beauty of it though, isn't it? You know, if we start giving it too much thought, then it all falls to pieces. That you've got to believe, it's still got to be real, otherwise the minute you start looking at logic with wrestling, it all falls to pieces quite quickly. So right, so yeah, do you know what, guys, I've been through most of the stuff I was going to at the moment. I really do appreciate you joining, but I think I might wrap this one up for today because I've got a few bits I might go over. Yeah, I'm with you too, mate. I don't watch a lot of modern wrestling. I have done a little bit, but I don't have the time for modern wrestling nowadays. It kind of drives me mad. So I don't have enough time to watch WWE because there's too many shows to watch, and I don't have enough time to watch AEW because I used to watch it, and I think they just got a little bit bogged down in like, you needed to watch Being the Elite, and you needed to watch everyone's YouTube shows to know what everyone's going on about, and I got fed up with that. I like my mid-90s wrestling. It's hokey, it's camp, it's kitsch. You have silly stuff. We can have Canadians being Russians, and we accept that. We can have a Filipino man being a Japanese superstar. You know, we don't need to be too bogged down in logic, so I quite like that. So yeah, so guys, I think I might wrap this up here today because I've got some really good ideas here. I've actually got more ideas from you than I came in with, which is really fantastic, and I kind of like the ideas of where we're going. I'm going to try and do these kind of semi-regularly, so if anyone else wants to join me again, if you ever want to come back, absolutely fantastic. But I've really appreciated all the input and everything that's going on. I think if you've got any feedback on how everything looks and what's going on, that'd be really good, because I've put some effort into trying to make it look like my streams make sense and look like a proper streamer, even though I'm kind of just making it up. But if you think there's anything I should change or tune, that's good. Oh my god, honestly, Jonathan, that everyone keeps adding this AEW's extra shows is ridiculous. I'm not even going to get bogged down into that. I'll end up just ranting for like half an hour about how annoyed I am. Teammate, I really appreciate you joining me. That's really fantastic. Your feedback and your actual knowledge of the years has been fantastic, so I'd love to see you back at any other time. But other than that, I will leave you guys to watch any other YouTubers that you are interested in, and any more TEW players. And until next time, I will see you very soon. Thanks, guys. See you later.